We've noted already that the Israelites' hearts were melting in fear, the Bible tells us, after Achan committed his sin and the people of Ai just annihilated the army of Israel when they were not at all expecting that was going to happen, that their hearts were melting in fear. Do you remember that we've heard that phrase before? Earlier in the book of Joshua, it was after the scouts had returned from scouting out Jericho. They said that somebody's hearts were melting in fear. It was the people of Jericho whose hearts were melting in fear. And so it wasn't the Israelites, it was the Israelites' enemy. But just a couple of laters, it was the Israelites then, whose hearts were melting in fear, just reminding us that, boy, just how quickly our emotions can go from one place to the exact opposite. One moment we're feeling confident, the next moment we're feeling entirely discouraged. One moment we're feeling full of joy, the next we're feeling full of grief. One moment we're feeling good about ourselves, the next moment we're not. And I want you to take note that that was the case for people who knew God was with them, who were determined to follow God, who were following His instructions. It happened even to them. And for the vast majority of the Israelites, when it came to Achan, at this point, they didn't yet know what Achan had done. So as far as they knew, nobody had done anything wrong. And yet their hearts were melting in fear. It went from the highest high to the lowest low, just in almost no time. And a lot of things can do that. Life in general can do that. Job circumstances can do that. Your own performance can do that. You feel good about yourself one moment and you fail at something the next and you feel awful about yourself. Your own sense of how you're doing in morality can do that. You feel like you're loving God and serving God well, but then you catch yourself in a sin and you realize that you haven't. Death can do that. You're surrounded by people you love, and then you have to say goodbye to someone that you love. How quickly our hearts can go from one extreme to the other. And that's why it's important to note that even in our best of times, it's important that we remember that the one thing that's going to be steady in our lives, the only thing that we will ever be able to count on to be steady in our lives is God. It's God Himself. Our God remains the same. I just want you to think about Jesus as He's on His way to the cross just during Holy Week. As He prays in the garden that the cup be taken from Him, which was His way of praying, Father, I don't want to have to go through with this, but He still did. His determination to carry out the Father's will remained the same. And then He's arrested, and He's slapped, and He's whipped, and He's lied about. And He didn't open His mouth because His determination to get to the cross remained the same. And then they pound nails in Him, and they hang Him on a tree, and they watch Him suffocate. And He doesn't complain because His determination to love you remains the same. And then He willingly gives up His life because His determination to forgive you remains the same. And then He rises from the dead because He wanted the whole world to see that when He promises that He will be the constant in our lives, when He promises that He will always be there for you, He wants you to see that He alone can follow through on that promise, even if death itself is standing in the way. Our lives can very quickly change. Our God and His love for you always remains the same. Rest well tonight, my friends.